Well, good morning, everyone. This here is another episode of This is Politics and News with your boy Lucifari Vera. These lights are shining on my face too much. I don't like it. Making me look all bright-eyed. Let's get them down just a tad. Yeah. Let's There we go. Now we're ready to go. You know, I could have done that through the intro. But we got a few interesting things to say today. We're going to have a rather quick show. Shouldn't be too long. And we are going to talk about how this president of the United States has completely lost his marbles right after this.
It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it.
Well, here we are back to This is Politics. Man, a lot's been going on, hasn't it? Between midterms coming up and all the shenanigans that they are trying to pull off. I mean, it's almost ridiculous. They have literally tried to take it back to the 60s. Gerrymandering, cracking. Still got that to be ruled on. And now with this Save America Act, do you know it's actually contrary to its title? to throw that shit out the window would be an act to save America. Would be an act to ensure people can vote in this country, citizens of this country. It's full of a whole bunch of shit that just like any other policy or act, that I want to say the GOP Party, but Democrats do it as well. So let's just say any act that politicians want to put out there, that they have these great ideas. Most of them get acted out on the disenfranchised communities. Do you think the Save America Act is going to affect anyone in the suburbs, in the upper middle class, the rich, the super rich? No. Does anything of the Voter Rights Act affect any one of those classes? No. They want you to think that they don't want illegal immigrants voting. But that is way, way far left of the truth. That's not even economical with the truth. That's expensive with the truth. I have never in my days seen such a polarizing figure in the White House. And I don't think there ever was, other than how the country was during that time. Because it'd be unfair to say that no one's been polarizing when there was slavery, lynchings, and Jim Crow, and everything that led up to the civil rights fight of the 60s, and actually 50s and 40s and 30s and 20s. It just started getting busy in the latter years. But have we ever stopped fighting for civil rights? You see, the Civil Rights Act passed in 1965. But did we, or have we, stopped fighting for civil rights? No. You see, America has a long history of passing laws and legislation and acts and whatnot. And 100 years later, we're still dealing with it. If the Emancipation Proclamation was genuine, by 1965, we wouldn't have needed civil rights acts. If the 13th, 14th Amendment was authentic, we wouldn't have needed a march on Washington 100 years later. And here we are, many decades later, with the same cries. With the same gripes. With the same injustices. And I'm not completely satisfied with the fact that lynchings won't return. That the KKK won't come back even stronger. That a lot of our racist police and politicians and lawyers and judges and people of the community won't start wearing white sheets again. It seems to me that we're headed to time repeating itself. Because we are too damn divisive in this country. We put too many polarizing figures in office. And I get it. They trick us. They talk good. And their opponent doesn't talk as good. But when's the last time you voted and actually felt good about your vote? When's the last time you voted that you didn't just pick a candidate because you just didn't want the other one? I can't think of the last time. Now, I can't speak for all people, but I know for a lot of people, it was voting for Barack Obama. You felt good. You felt a change. A change you could believe in. That was the slogan, if I'm not mistaken. You felt like you were a part of that change. That's what voting is supposed to feel like. It's passé that you should be going to the polls trying to stop dramatic shit from happening. You should not feel I have to vote for this candidate because this other one is trying to exterminate a race of people. Or this candidate is trying to start World War III. Or this candidate wants to enrich all his buddies. Or this candidate wants to get in there to make billions. No. You should not have a sense of fear when you vote. You should have a sense of patriotism. You should have a sense of gladness, enchantment, not doom and gloom. But that's what we have now. That's how bad we have let it get. And I'm not one to sit here and point fingers at this party and that party, this politician and that politician. For everything that happens, we have ourselves to blame. Elections have consequences. But how consequential is another story. Honestly, I don't feel like this is the United States of America anymore. I feel like it's just the states of America. We should just be SA. Get the U out of there. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. I did the mapping too. I actually thought of this. That what if we started separating here and the states turned into individual countries? Now, we wouldn't get 50 countries. There'd be states that would unite with others. But I drew it up and took likenesses of each state, and I came up with 9 different countries within the United States. But I wouldn't doubt if that day comes. Because there's no more bipartisanship. In fact, it's just hyperpartisanship. You're either with me or against me. And that attitude is a reflection of this polarizing president we have in the White House. And he's got this Save America Act that is going to completely get rid of probably 80% of the disenfranchised vote, the poor vote. Not the illegal alien votes. We could talk about the Save America Act. And there are things about it that don't make sense to me. First of all, there's nothing new about citizenship needing to be a requirement to vote. You always had to be a citizen to vote. And it's not like we have a bunch of non-citizens out there trying to vote. that is not an issue in this country of non-citizens going to polls and trying to vote. I don't believe that. Especially under this administration. Under any administration. But the way it is right now for citizens who obtain their citizenship by coming here, denaturalized, it's hard enough for them. Yeah, they're a citizen. Are they a citizen? Go back here. You don't like this, you don't like that. People who are actually citizens of this country because they came here and legally obtained citizenship. Yeah, they're going to go vote. They have a right to. There's going to be those that run for office. They have a right to. Not for the presidency, but other positions. Now, I'm going to play a few clips for you. On Trump speaking on this Save America Act. We have, let's see here. Okay. Here is Donald Trump speaking on the Save America Act.
Okay. On the Senate, on the SAVE Act, why do you want the U.S. Senate to stay in town? Shouldn't they be out across the country?
Why? What a stupid question for you to ask. What a stupid question. For Jennifer to ask such a stupid, she's a smart person. I knew her all the way back in the Iowa days when she said Trump's going to win. And boy, was she right. So listen, why do I want? The SAVE Act has to be done. They shouldn't leave town. I'm not going to stop them from doing it, but they should get the SAVE Act done. If they don't get it done, it's going to be a very bad thing for the party. And frankly, you know, if you look at it, the SAVE Act is going to be voted against by all Democrats, just so we know. We have some Republicans that I will not comment on, a few of them, probably 4, that we probably won't get the vote. I'd like to comment on them, but I have too much sense to do it. The Democrats are going to vote 100% against voter identification and proof of citizenship. 100%. They want your taxes to go up. They want men playing in women's sports. They want open border for the world's criminals to pour into our country. And yet, despite all of that, we have the lowest crime rate in the history of our country since 1900 with murders. With all of that, with all of the 25 million people, many of them criminals that the Democrats let in. Well, they just announced this morning they want an open border policy where the world's criminals can pour into our country. I think they're crazy. There's something wrong with them. Okay?
On the Senate, on the SAVE Act, why do you want the U.S. Senate to stay in town? Shouldn't they be out across the country?
Why? What a stupid question for you to ask.
Campaigning?
What a stupid question. For Jennifer to ask such a stupid, she's a smart person. I knew her all the way back in the...
All right. Do you see how this is getting to be more than what it started as? First of all, it started as a stupid voter ID. And I kept asking myself, okay, show ID when you vote. I was one that said, okay, pull your ID out. But why was it consistently called voter ID? Why wasn't it just called ID? Hold on one second. Where was I? Yes, why wasn't it just this voter ID? And now it's starting to seem as if it's climbing to more. Now it's not just voter ID. Now it's voter ID and proof of citizenship. Well, wait a minute. So now, just pulling out your ID is not enough. Now we got to go through proof of citizenship. Now, I like to believe that I'm covered because my ID is federalized. And anyone who has their ID federalized should not have a problem. That's when they put the little star on your ID. But I do remember trying to get that star on my ID. And let me tell you, it wasn't a walk in the park. It blew my mind what I had to do to prove I was a citizen of a place that I lived my entire life. I had to get a few pieces of mail, and it had to be certain mail. You had to have a utility. You had to have your birth certificate, which you already had to have for your license. You had to have another secondary letter, but it couldn't just be any letter. It couldn't be like a hospital bill. It couldn't be. It had to be something issued by, I'm not going to say the government, but it had to be something that was, I think maybe you could use like a Visa bill, or it was a pain in the ass. A few documents that you got to come up with. Women. A lot of women just said, fuck it. Especially if they've been married more than once. Older women. I know someone who had to try and get a marriage license from the 70s. Because you have to show your marriage license for every single time you got married. Every time your name changed. The license, the divorce, the new marriage, license and divorce, third marriage, license and divorce. Now, I'm not saying it's good for anybody to be married 3 times. I'm not one that believes in just marrying folks because I think I love them. But people do it. And if you've been married multiple times, proof of citizenship gets harder for you unless you've kept your records. Now, who does that sound like it benefits? And who does it sound like it doesn't benefit or makes it harder for? You know it. Middle class, lower middle class, poor people that don't have filing cabinets and everything that they've done their whole life, documented and things of that nature. You know? Paperwork that, I don't need this no more. Or what about the American citizens that don't have no utilities? Living mama or grandmama's or daddy's basement. Or what about the homeless? That no matter what their social status is in life, no matter if they got 1 penny to their name or $1 billion to their name, they are U.S. citizens and have a right to vote. How will a homeless man be able to prove he's a citizen? With the documentation he's going to need. Because the free ID that the DMV gives out just might not be enough. Because they're saving America. No, they're not. They're trying to destroy America. And now, they want to get rid of the filibuster to get the act passed because they can't end the debate to even come to a culture on the Save America Act in the Senate. Of course, it passed the House because in the House you have some silly-ass Democrats that supported the shit. There shouldn't have been one damn Democrat that supported that Save America Act. But there were some. But there's Republicans in the Senate that do not support it because there are still moderate conservatives left. You know, I can remember when the Democrats wanted the filibuster gone because they wanted to pass it. And Joe Manchin had to stand up and say, no, we need the filibuster. The filibuster is there so that you can't just have a majority and do what you want. And then they try, what's another attempt? The nuclear act. And thank God, or whoever, thank the goddess, or whoever it is you believe in, that there were conservatives that they don't have the votes for the nuclear option. Because one thing about the nuclear option, It's indefinite. It's indefinite. And it will always, there'll be no more. The filibuster would be obsolete forever. Because all you need is a majority. And how that works, the nuclear option, it's a legal process where you don't have your 60 votes, and you take the fact that you don't have your 60 votes, and you enforce it anyway with a majority. Then that's challenged, and you win because you didn't have the 60. Well, they appeal that. And if they win the appeal, that's how that works. Now, it's been a long time since I looked into the nuclear option, but I want to be clear. But I'm pretty sure that's how the nuclear option works. Let's see. It's a 4-step process. First, to set up, the majority leader brings a bill or nomination to the floor. Under current rule, it requires 60 votes to end the debate. That's what the filibuster is. It's the debate. Then, the practical violation. The majority leader intentionally violates the rule book by claiming, I move to close debate on this bill with a simply majority. As I said, you just say, the leader just says, I'm going to move on this with just the majority. The presiding officers, the person sitting at the front of the chambers, looks at the rule books and says, no, that is out of order. Senate rules explicitly require 60 votes to close the debate. Then the kill shot. The appeal. The majority leader immediately says, I appeal the ruling of the chair. The full Senate then votes on whether the presiding officer's ruling was correct. It doesn't become about the filibuster no more. It becomes about appealing the presiding officer's ruling, saying that 60 is what was needed. You see what I'm saying here? It's a loop. It's a loophole. But nobody wants to do that shit because once the nuclear option is enacted, it is indefinite. And then you got to get a whole nother 60 to do away with it. And good luck with that, because anybody who's in power is going to want, the majority is always going to rule. Because if the Democrats are going to want it, because the Democrats wanted to get rid of the filibuster when they wanted to pass things. And reconciliation is not an option because that only pertains to spending. So, thankfully, we have GOP that has sense. And in fact, we have Republicans within the party that are moving away from Trump for the midterms quietly. Because what happened in Kentucky when they were disagreeing with Trump. They screwed him over in the primaries. Basically fired elected officials and put other people in there that go along with Trump to run for the seats. And that was over gerrymandering. However, this video, I want you guys to see on what's going on inside of the Republican Party.
According to a new report from MS Now, Donald Trump's own allies inside the White House are instructing Republican candidates running for office in the midterms that you need to not run on "I agree with everything Trump says" if you want to keep your jobs. Now, I will read you some quotes from this piece, but first I want folks to understand Donald Trump is the kind of guy who, if you break ranks with him, if you disagree with him, especially if you do it publicly, you're dead to him. He hates you.
So purported.
He will actually go out of his way to help destroy your career because you do not view him as God himself.
Unbelievable.
So for people inside Trump's own orbit to go out there and tell these Republican candidates, hey, you guys need to just ignore this guy, not say what he says, disagree with him, it almost sounds like a trap because Trump will come after these people.
He will.
But the reason these allies of Donald Trump are, of course, instructing Republicans on how to run their midterm races is because a new poll came out showing that 65% of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of the Iran war. Even higher percentages disapprove of his handling of the U.S. economy.
Absolutely.
In spite of majorities, massive majorities disapproving of both of those issues, Iran and the economy, Trump continues to insist to us on a near daily basis, the economy is great and the Iran war could not be going better.
Lies.
And it is those statements that these Trump allies are telling Republicans, yeah, don't go say those things to the voters. They already know it's BS. He's going to keep saying it. Okay, don't worry about him. You go out there and tell them the truth. Everything's screwed, but maybe we can make it better. Let me read you this. GOP strategists are secretly telling Republican incumbents and challengers to, quote, put some distance and space between how they talk about the Middle East conflict and how Trump does. My colleague, Von Hilliard, and I have talked to multiple different senior officials, allies close to Trump, people in charge of leading the midterm strategy for Republicans. They're advising candidates, whether they're incumbents or challengers, Republican candidates, to essentially not talk about the war the same way President Trump does. They're encouraged to actually put some distance and space between the way Trump talks about the war and the way they do, because they're aware they don't have a winning strategy when it comes to the midterms. One Republican operative said, quote, you're not going to have candidates or lawmakers running out to defend the president's handling of the economy or the war. Polling shows that most people don't agree with his handling. Another Republican strategist warned that Republicans could be falling into a, quote, Democrat trap if they openly support the war on the campaign trail. If a candidate lets their race become a referendum on Iran, that's a mistake.
I know, right?
You think?
I cut this
Here's
off.
the problem y'all have as Republicans, though. If you
says.
can't back Trump, which you guys have done for the last year and a half on just about everything, minus a couple of stragglers here and there, very rarely though, then you also have nothing to run on, right? Because you guys have done all of the things that he's wanted. Like, you are the ones who have repeatedly voted down the War Powers Resolution to end the Iran conflict.
True.
You guys were the ones who passed the one big beautiful bill that tanked the economy.
True.
You've refused to take up any of the other measures that could have repaired the economy. You won't ban stock trading among members of Congress, which is still pissing people off.
And ridiculous.
So you've been going along with Trump the whole time.
They have.
You don't get to suddenly distance yourself because it's politically convenient to do so. You own this. You did this. He is the figurehead. You guys were the ones who enabled him every single step of the way.
Okay, all right, I see where he's going
Now,
with this.
you folks watching this, you know that, right? I'm not giving you things you don't already know right now. But the people who apparently don't know how to say what I just said are, of course, the Democratic strategist in charge of messaging for the party. Because there's your campaign. You go out there, you get on that debate stage, or you run ads, which you guys are still not doing, and you beat the hell out of these Republicans for enabling this every step of the way.
They can do that.
They did this collectively.
They can do that.
It is not just Donald Trump. It is the entirety of the Republican Party. And if the voters cannot associate the two and keep that association there,
Right.
then Republicans are not going to have as bad of a November as we think they are, or as we'd like to hope they will. Instead, Republicans are going to try to break those bonds, right? Rewrite their history of the last year and a half, telling the voters like, well, we don't actually support these things, but they did every step of the way.
That's not how they do it, though.
Do not let the voters forget that. Do not let these Republicans try to run away. Trip them where they run. Otherwise, you guys aren't going to pick up as many seats as you think. Hey, thanks for...
Okay. I see where he was getting at with that. Okay. Yes. He is correct on those points. But where he's not correct is that the Republicans can't start to pull away. I personally supported things that Trump was doing. And as I seen more and more bullshit piling up, I pulled completely away. You can run on the fact that this was the party's agenda, and the world knows how Donald Trump is, and they know to speak out early is political suicide. Speak out when you run for re-election. Pull away then and say, because this here is when we got it wrong. This here is where we got it wrong. That way, you can attempt to win seats that way. But if you don't win those seats, if you do win those seats, Donald Trump needs you. Even if you pulled away from him, even if you went against him, even if you said all of this is what you've done wrong, and you pull away from him, if you win, he needs you still. At that point in time, he can't make an enemy of you. He can't try to destroy your career then. If you voice it now, you give him time to destroy you and replace you with someone that's going to do what he says. So actually, it's more strategic if you have these disagreements or other ideologies or other ways the war should have been handled or the war shouldn't have been started at all. And you hold these beliefs, wait till you're running in midterms and keep quiet before Trump can destroy you. Now, on that is the hope for the GOP party. On the Democrat side, absolutely. They attack what you've been supporting all this time. And now you want to get up here in this election and say this. There is a flip side to that coin. It can backfire on you. However, how you do it and the world knowing how Donald Trump is, and you just wanted to make sure you made it to that stage. Because after midterms, the president needs you. Because the Democrats are going to pick up seats. No doubt about that. Whether if they end up getting the majority, or what if they just come within a couple seats? What if they pick up, what if the Senate becomes 48 to 52? Or even 49 to 51. You need all of your Republicans. There is no leeway for you to pull away or bash one of them. Because one of their votes go the other way, guess what? You get nothing done. See, Donald Trump is able to be as ruthless and as stupid and as un-American as it gets. Because of how much of a majority they have in both houses. And not only do they completely control the legislative branch, does he control? Because let's be clear here. Donald Trump's whole damn cabinet he runs, which is completely the most unethical, should be illegal, definitely un-American, shit I've ever seen in my life. When you nominate somebody for a position, you nominate them to do that job. You don't nominate an attorney general to be your personal lawyer. You know, Pam Bondi was Trump's once personal lawyer. Yeah, sure was. And damn, I had a brain for it, can't think of the name. It'll come to me. But the new attorney general was one of Trump's personal lawyers. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, reports to Donald Trump. What kind of shit is that? The buck stops at the director. The director doesn't report to anyone. But the way Donald Trump runs shit, he does. The Attorney General reports to Donald Trump. He's running them offices. The presidency, the Department of Justice, the FBI, Homeland Security, every department out there, he is running, not the secretary. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, you think he's running that Iranian war? Just look at it. Trump is constantly saying what he's going to do. He's fighting this war. That's because he's got a damn defense secretary that was a Fox News anchor. America needs to get back to what a democracy is. These departments do not report to the president. They work for the people of the United States. Trump doesn't understand that. But he understands that he can fire them. And they understand that he can fire them. And the fact that nothing can be done if he fires them because they won't do what he says. They do what he says. It's a fucking shame, y'all. It's a shame. President of the United States shouldn't be talking about dropping bombs and where they're going to bomb and what's this, oh, he did this, I'm going to do that, completely controlling the war. No, that's the generals. When war is declared, it gets turned over to the Department of Defense. Yes, he's commander-in-chief. But he should not be out there on the front line ordering the attacks or strategizing the attacks in the war. Especially the fact that he has no military experience whatsoever. That's why Iran really is kicking our ass over there. That's why they're saying, don't speak of the war the way he does. Because the only people that speak of that Iranian war the way Trump does is Fox News. If you watch Fox News, then you will think we over there kicking Iran's ass. You watch any damn thing else, you see what a struggle we're having. Our munitions is gone. We're begging for more money. What was the last figure? 100 and some billion they need extended from the 82 billion they already got? Because you're wasting intercontinental ballistic missiles. You're wasting ballistic missiles. You're wasting plane jets that cost $150 million to build. They're shooting down 3 at a time. You got the water mines blowing ships up, formerly known as the sea mines. That's an old torpedo there. That's old school. That they were doing the sea mines. My God, I think they go back to the early wars. But they're effective. They're one of the oldest technologies in defense that are as effective in modern warfare. So the Iranians use them. They control the Strait of Hormuz. Hold on, let me answer this call. Hello? I told you 11:15. Okay, give me a couple minutes. Okay, I plan on it because I'll just tell you when I get there. Let me close here. I still have a show to finish. But all right. My God. Anyway. Israel ain't winning shit. Because them putting those water mines in the strait. Once this war started, Iran took over control of the strait. Now, a lot of people like to say Iran does not own the strait. They do. They share the strait with Oman. That's their territory. But they took it over in defense. They closed it down as a defense tactic. A lot of people might think they closed it down just to make other countries mad at Israel and America. It's also a gateway straight into their country. You know what I'm saying? We don't want these big battleships launching jets right off our shore. The hell? Iran's just defending themselves. And I went back through history. Iran has never attacked another nation. Ever. Fact check me. Any way you look to see if Iran attacked another nation, the only thing you're going to find is the nations that were attacked in this war. and they were U.S. bases. Iran can never have a nuclear bomb. To be honest, Iran having a nuclear weapon doesn't scare me. Not at all. Doesn't scare me. But they don't have nuclear bombs because it goes against their religious beliefs. They're not like the Zionists that claim to be Jews, but they're just politicians, statehood Jews running Israel. They're not like them. They are Jewish, but they're not Orthodox Jews. Because if they was, there wouldn't be no Israel. Jews' whole faith are to be people of exile until the Messiah comes and gives them their place. They don't get down with them Zionists. The last time somebody wasn't supposed to have a nuclear weapon and we went to war, which really wasn't a war. We just went in there and destroyed Iraq because Saddam had nukes, which was another lie. Well, while you were paying attention to Iraq, who ended up becoming a nuclear nation? North Korea. Countries that want to be left alone develop nuclear weapons. They're not for offense. They're for deterrence. And Iran is a country that wants to be left alone to conduct their business and do what they do. You can't say Iran can never have a nuclear weapon because, for one, you're going to be out. You're out of term in 2 years. Iran's still a strong nation with a strong army that ain't going nowhere, and they have the most important thing you need to have a nuclear weapon. They have the knowledge. And they have allies that are nuclear nations. So they don't need it. They really don't. If it ever came down to a real world war, they're with nations that are heavily nuclearized. We stand alone. Well, we got Israel. Israel got nukes, but they belong to us. And Britain, the UK, they got nukes. But who says they're going to fight with us? What? NATO? That Trump is just ripping a new asshole every day? Look. I had other things that I wanted to get into on this episode. But we're going to save it for the next one. Because this is going to be going on. I wanted to get into Dr. Fauci a little bit, but I probably should save that for the next one. And get more info on that. But I do want to play one video for you before we go. Because this one, I get a kick out. Every time I hear him speak on Trump. It's like, and this is what I mean by when they say you can't just pull away from somebody. Bullshit, you can't. Bullshit, you can't.
this isn't a war, nothing's a war. I mean, this is absolutely out of control. And so I'm calling for it right now. 25th Amendment, impeachment, whatever needs to happen to get this front and center, to get control of our country. It's impeachable alone that the president supported the NDAA. I agree with Tucker Carlson that all of the people that voted for this, the mergers with the foreign military, it actually says it in Section 219, clear as day, need to be in Nuremberg-style trials. If this isn't a war, nothing's a war. I mean, this is absolutely out of control. And so I'm calling for it right now. 25th Amendment, impeachment, whatever needs to happen to get this front and center, to get control of our country. It's impeachable alone that the president supported the.
So, you remember how Alex Jones was about Donald Trump? And there's so many others. Even his boy who deserved to die, his dead buddy Kirk. Even he would be like that right now. Even Charlie Kirk would be like that right now against Trump. But as always, I got to cut this one short. This is Politics with Lucifer Rivera. And blessed be to all of you.